Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers win in overtime as Dalton Knecht explodes for 35 points. Break it down next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the show, all of whom, Andy, were just really excited, I think, at the performance of Dalton Knecht in Thursday's preseason overtime thriller of a win over the Phoenix Suns. The Lakers pull this one out in OT, and Knecht, who kind of came alive a little bit late in was it they play Monday or Tuesday? I forget. It was Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of came alive a little late in that one. He was huge again in the fourth quarter of this one, and was even huger in the overtime and finished with 35 points, Andy. 35 points for Dalton Knecht. And we'll get into this over the course of the show. It's kind of an important 35 because there's an intriguing position battle and rotation battle going on based on the news we got Thursday about Jared Vanderbilt and his lack of availability for the first couple weeks of the season.
I'm not going to say that we predicted, a 35-point explosion from Dalton Knecht as a result of the late baskets that he had in the last preseason game, but we both did say that it was not insignificant, even in a loss, even contextually, whatever, for a guy like Knecht, who is still getting his NBA footing and is both a scorer and a shooter and has not been able to do either for the summer league or most of the preseason with any real efficiency. It matters for him to see the shots go down. Like it's important. And I think it was important for him to have a really good taste in his mouth after that game, results of the game notwithstanding, just for his own personal confidence as he moves forward, particularly since, as you mentioned, there is that positional battle happening, and he is the guy right now of everyone that is in for what for the time being appears like the 9-man rotation. As until Vando gets back, Knecht is the guy whose playing time looked the most potentially tenuous at the very least. Like he's the guy most likely to lose minutes.
It's either going to be that ninth spot is either him or Cam Reddish, probably, and that may switch from night to night. But in terms of a who gets kind of first crack at that, that's kind of what it looks like. And you go to the final line of this one, which, by the way, I should note. Really should note a couple things. The first thing I should note is today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The final line on Knecht was 10 of 18, 8 of 13 from three-point range, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. So again, scoring in a lot of different ways. From all three levels, 7 rebounds, nice to see. He had an assist, he had 2 steals, he had 2 blocks. And
one of them a jumper in space. Like he really timed that thing well.
It's interesting because JJ Redick talking after the game, he acknowledged first of all, Knecht is a rookie. And so rookies are going to struggle defensively in the NBA almost without exclusion. But what he said about Knecht was, if you tell him to do something, he's going to try to do it. He is very coachable. He is, he listens and he tries to execute the thing that you're asking of him. And now that doesn't mean he's going to do it perfectly, but from a coach's standpoint, in terms of feeling comfortable relying on a rookie, it's always a little uncomfortable to put a guy on the floor who you aren't sure is going to be able to execute the thing that you want him to do. But at the very least, you have the comfort in knowing that he will understand the game plan and try to execute it, which is not something that you can say about every rookie.
Well, you also know in the case of Knecht, this is somebody who has to be coachable because he has worked his ass off from the bottom to where he is now. He is somebody that began as a JUCO player. Then he went to, is it Northern Colorado or something, like nowhere particularly well known,
Hollywood Upstairs Medical College.
Right. It's an actual D1 school, but it's not a traditional powerhouse. I'm not sure I knew they existed. I'm not sure I knew they existed until I heard of
Cooper Flagg was choosing between them and Duke and just reluctantly went with Duke.
Right. And then ends up going to Tennessee where he ends up the star of the team. Like, yeah, there is some natural athleticism that people may have missed out on, underestimate him because he's a white boy, whatever. But the point being, you can't get this far in his backstory unless you're coachable. And it was interesting. James Worthy on the Spectrum Sportsnet postgame talked about how he thinks there's going to be a lot of GMs and owners around the league who are going to regret not being more open-minded to Dalton Knecht, a 23-year-old rookie. And there was an interesting sequence, too, that I thought was kind of emblematic of Knecht in this game, having a few gut check moments and also just not being afraid in general. There was this exchange between Billy Mack and Stu as the game was going on, where Billy asked Stu if he thought Dalton Knecht was ready to play significant minutes. And Stu said, I think he's ready to play minutes. And it was clarified as at about 12 to 15. And then almost if on cue, Dalton drove a defensive rebound inside, but he basically went coast to coast, but turned the ball over on a pass out and clearly did not have a plan in that moment. But there were other times, including the way he took over down the stretch, where you saw that the kid has guts. He's not afraid. He went for a big two-handed dunk against Yusef Nurkic in the first half of the game, ended up getting fouled, went to the line, but he's not afraid. And I think that's something that everybody
pointed out after the game. And a couple guys did. Yeah.
He's really not afraid at all. And when you have that foundation that's fearless, you can get through a lot of the growing pains. The fearlessness and the willingness to be coached can take you a long way. Plus, he is talented.
He is, and he's athletic. His combine numbers and all that stuff. He's not just a kid who can shoot and that's it. Like his jumping ability and all that stuff. I mean, I realize goofy white guy. Yes, I'm there, and in some ways makes Austin Reeves seem cosmopolitan by comparison.
We'll give him a little time in LA.
Noted Arkansan. How do you say that?
I believe it's Arkansan.
It's Arkansan, right? I think
so. Yeah.
If not, please correct. Somebody out there can correct me. But for Knecht, the worthy pointing out his age, I think, is one of these things that I know we talked about it when Knecht was drafted, as did others. It's not like we were the only people who figured this out. But the Lakers benefited, not just from Knecht dropping and getting a guy who, okay, fine, maybe coming into the league at 23 means that his ceiling isn't quite as high as a guy that you draft when they're 20 or 21. Okay, fine. But if you're a team that needs somebody to step in and play meaningful minutes for you quickly, the age becomes an asset. And that coachability, that understanding, the work ethic, you're not going to have to teach Knecht how to behave in a program and learn how to do all that. He knows. And the Lakers,
he's coached by Rick Barnes. He's probably frightened to act out in any way.
But you understand what I mean? He's built in the habits. Yeah. He is a little bit older. He's more mature. He's been through stuff, and he's had to really earn and work and all of those other things. And he has been around enough basketball, enough organized to get the concepts. And maybe certain guys are going to be better than him, that he can cover. But I think a game like tonight shows, and we'll talk about it after the break, the difference between him and, say, Cam Reddish, who also, he started with LeBron out of the lineup and Rui sitting with, precautionary, really, with an ankle soreness.
Calf.
What? Oh, calf soreness. Thank you. I thought it was ankle. But it was, Reddish stepped into the starting lineup and played pretty well. And so
I was going to say, I want to make sure that we mention Cam actually.
Well, I want to say, that's why Knecht's game was an interesting one, because for a lot of it, I was thinking maybe this rotation looks different. So we'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Hims. Your sex life is important and you want it to be spontaneous, but your schedule's busy. You don't have time to get to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and all the generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, no uncomfortable, awkward doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on the site, and a medical provider will provide you with the right treatments. And if prescribed, the medication ships directly to you. Discreet packaging for free. Insurance not necessary. Start online free with a visit today at hims.com/locked on. That's HIMS.com/locked on for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/locked on. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products that are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety.
So, regular listeners to the program, Andy, know that I am not necessarily the biggest supporter of Cam Reddish in the city of Los Angeles. That said, when you were comparing Knecht and his play to Reddish and his play early in this game, it was one of these deals where if one of these guys has to be playing because, Vando's not available and you have this ninth spot, that's out there, and the other 8 are pretty set. We can talk about guys like Christie and Vincent and whether or not you feel confident in them going into the season, but they're going to be in the rotation in a big way, at least early. Knecht needs to be able to provide the offensive punch that it makes him worth putting in the lineup, or someone like Reddish, who came in and he played 30 minutes tonight. He had 5 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, created other opportunities on the glass just with a lot of activity, and
he was incredibly active on both sides of the ball in this game.
He was moving well. He showed a lot of athleticism. He did, when you get good Cam Reddish, he did those kinds of things. But he did only have 4 points in 30 minutes. So you see some of the limitations. But that said, if you're not going to get offense from Knecht, the ability to space the floor, the ability to bolster bench scoring, whatever it might be, it is much easier to look at somebody like Reddish and be like, you know what, let's get the athleticism, let's get a little length and maybe a little bit of a defensive upgrade. And that fourth quarter and that overtime may have gone back and complicated some choices for JJ Redick.
It's really worth pointing out, too, that, yes, down the stretch of this game, fourth quarter and overtime, Dalton Knecht and the other reserves were playing against Phoenix's deep reserves. Some of the shots Knecht made were extremely difficult. I don't care who's guarding you. Like they were, you could see by the reaction of LeBron and AD and all the other guys on the bench, they're like, damn, like that was a hard shot that he just made. The thing, though, that really, I think, breaks the tie in Knecht's favor beyond the whole, he's a first-round pick, if there's anything close to a tie to be broken, you break it with the guy that you're investing in long term. The way the rotation is currently laid out right now, it is starved for scoring. Like
Yes.
there is no consistent scoring. Max Christie, I think, is settling into when the role is simplified for him, and it's just a very important but narrow lane. Play defense, hit open threes, be disruptive. Don't try to do anything else. Like there was a sequence where Max was taking the ball up court after I believe he got a defensive rebound, and he clearly did not know what to do. Like D'Angelo Russell was wildly signaling to him to move the ball, like pointing where to go, and the ball didn't end up moving where it was supposed to. So you have to tailor things for Max, but I think if you do, he can succeed in it.
He needs to be more. He needs to be more aggressive. We don't need to get down the Christie rabbit hole, but overall, if he's going to play a 20-minute a night role on this team, he needs to be more aggressive offensively.
That's true. I just think he needs to be aggressive in the right way. But
Sure.
he is a limited scoring option. Gabe Vincent is a limited scoring option. Jackson Hayes can only score in a certain way, and it has to be set up, spoon-fed
Right by someone else.
Right. Yeah. And, even when Vando comes back, Vando, I think, can find ways to function in the offense, but he's not going to be scoring. Like, unless you flip Rui and Vando, like we've talked about before as a possibility before Vando was hurt, Knecht is really the only guy they have off the bench that you can think about providing scoring punch. You kind of need to try to find a way to play him if you can.
Where that's the profile, where you look at it and say, like, this is his skill set. You look Christie off the bench, 3-point shooting, okay, sure, but defense, flexibility that way. Vincent, defense, and a little bit of floor organization or whatever. Knecht is the only guy who profiles as an offensive player. Like, this is what you get. And it's a matter of if it was just 3-point shooting, I think then it would be a more difficult. He'd definitely be a better 3-point shooter than Reddish. But it's the fact that Knecht can do things at multiple levels and is pretty good moving the ball like in the flow of an offense. I'm not saying I want to put the ball in his hands and have him create. That's not what I mean. But when he comes off a screen, he seems to be very capable of making the right read, making the next pass. If you bring him off of a screen and somebody else dives on the baseline, Knecht is going to be able to make that pass, and you can get buckets that way. And so he is the amount of stuff that I think he can unlock for the second unit, so that Redick and the coaching staff can continue to call plays, have a structured offense, not get stagnant and all that. I think I would, and it's not just my anti-Reddish bias. I think eventually you're just going to get to the point where Cam Reddish, he's going to have a decent game, but he's going to be Cam Reddish again. I agree with you. If everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, Knecht's a better player, I think, or more useful for what they need on this team.
Well, and also too, I mean, I suppose that math could change a little bit once Christian Wood returns, because he is somebody that has proven that he can score, and he is likely going to be playing off the bench. But I know Christian Wood has expressed optimism about his return, but we are still nowhere close to this.
We are not. So, it was good. It was good to see Reddish play well, though, because he is going to play. Like, I don't think, I think Redick will try to establish a fairly consistent rotation early because players like it. And he seems to have put an emphasis on predictability, not just I like it as a coach, but I understand players like to know and like to understand when they're coming in, when they're not, what their role is going to be, what their role isn't going to be, and all that stuff. And even if you're probably not going to play right away, but here are the circumstances where you might, please be ready and all that. Players appreciate that. And so over these first few games, I think they'll try to be relatively consistent. But that said, Reddish is going to play. And if he's going to play, other coaches have tried. but I'm curious to see if this coaching staff can figure out a way to use Reddish in a way like all role players, where you can maximize what he's good at and hide what he's not. I just think the biggest problem with Cam is that his deficiencies match too many of the other guys' deficiencies.
Yeah, in some ways, while it is about him because he is responsible for what he does and doesn't bring to the table, in certain respects, it's not even about him. It's about some of the other guys on the floor. And as you mentioned, that redundancy. But again, he did play well in this game. And
if you're gonna be that negative offensively, you kind of need to be like Matisse Thybulle, where like you are such a positive.
Who, by the way, often finds trouble getting on the court too.
Yes, and he is a tremendous defender.
Yeah, right. But either way, though, it is the first extended minutes he's played in a long time. So if nothing else, it's got to feel good to Cam to actually have played well.
LeBron didn't play. We mentioned that, but Anthony Davis did.
Mm-hmm.
And while Knecht did, show him a few things about efficiency, they both scored 35, but AD needed 28 shots. Knecht only needed 18. I wonder if we have a new alpha in LA. But I think it's fair to say that Anthony Davis is rolling into the regular season in MVP form. So we'll get to that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can enjoy the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let's say you're watching a game and just it feels like you can anticipate everything that's about to happen, every touchdown pass, every turnover, every sack. Just you get hunches, and they always seem right. You can confirm those hunches with the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much else on the same page as you place your bets. Streamlined info, and you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And we are getting closer to the 24-25 NBA season. Our friends at FanDuel have some options for you. As of this recording, here are some of the odds to win the Western Conference. The Thunder are the favorites at 3-1. You got a three-way tie with the Wolves, Mavs, and Nuggets at 5-1. Moving down a little bit further, the Grizzlies are at 16-1, Lakers 19-1, Warriors 21-1, and the Pelicans and Kings tied at 22-1. That's FanDuel.com.
It's worth mentioning, Andy, that the energy that has been on the bench a few times over the in the other preseason win the Lakers have, that was the Oliveri game, and the bench was going nuts. In this game, LeBron was in street clothes, Rui's in street clothes, all the reserves are in the game, bench is going nuts. Like guys are fully engaged in what's going on. And Redick after the game did talk about the value of that in terms of building a culture, building some togetherness and stuff like that. Like this is a long slog that these guys are about to embark on. And for the core players that are going to be part of this roster, and Redick has been pretty committed to playing basically the roster guys plus the two-way guys. Mm-hmm. The sort of weird fringy dudes who are there for camp haven't really gotten on the floor very much. And you can see some cohesion coming with them that could prove positive again for a team that needs to maximize every little bit of whatever's available to them if they're going to win.
I think they also just recognize too, these guys are out there working really hard and they're playing really hard. And there obviously could be some degree of upped investment when the deep reserves are out there because one of them is LeBron's son. So you figure he's going to be particularly interested in those minutes. But the Quincy Oliveri moment, that happened when Bronny was on the bench as well. And I think these guys just, first of all, most of them were on the team last year, and they recognized that those deep reserved minutes were, forget unsuccessful, they were uninspiring, and they were unserious. Like for a group of players that were not in any way established in the league at all, they were startlingly casual when they were on the court.
Yeah, God, they were bad. Like their back end of the rotation. Oh my God, they're garbage.
And this year's group, for whatever reason, plays way effing harder. And
I'll tell you, like, and it's funny. Like, I didn't love him in the summer league, but in the preseason, I've kind of digging what Traore does. Like, you know, I mean, that dude is an athlete, and he gets after it.
Yeah.
And so I like him like as a two-way guy, and that he's in the proverbial program and all that kind of stuff. And Bronny's got a long way to go. There's no question. But
and Traore too. Like, I just recently, I don't, like a lot of people, I don't know the ins and outs of international ball, but like his brother is a big time prospect. Like his brother is considered like a future lottery pick. And, there may be some degree of, hey, if he's even somewhat close to what his brother has, or, there may be some potential that, we're not expecting to get at that level, but if he can get halfway there, they can be a pretty good player.
Well, he's also played professionally. And so, when you think about, it's a little like Knecht. Like, there are a couple different ways you can look at the two-way guys, and we'll get to AD here in a second, but there are a couple different ways to look at the two ways. It's like, are you stashing a prospect? That's, I think, what the Lakers still are hoping with Maxwell Lewis, with Bronny, guys who you hope with time and with development can become NBA players. The two-way guys are a little bit different because these are players that you kind of like. Some of them may be more likely to play. Like Castleton is more likely to play for the Lakers this year than Maxwell Lewis is. Despite the fact Lewis has a real contract and a normal contract, whatever you want to call it, and Castleton doesn't. Traore might be in that situation. Hell, I'd even say Bronny might play before Maxwell Lewis. But
Maxwell Lewis might play before JHS. JHS was,
oh my God, he was terrible.
He was JH mess in this game. I mean, he just
you texted me that. I know he's kind of workshopping that, and I was like, oh yeah, that worked. I like it.
I mean, I feel
you didn't have to use it, but I liked it.
I don't look. I'm not looking.
He got off to a really promising start in this preseason. It has gone downhill from there.
And look, I take no pleasure in it. You and I have both been beating the drum of it's way too early to write him off, but his preseason has gone increasingly downhill. And this game, he just was out of sorts.
He was the worst player on the floor for the Lakers. It wasn't even close. So, but like a guy like Traore, a guy like the two-way guys, to some degree, you want players who can come in. You need 3 games because somebody's hurt, and they going to play 8 minutes a game and not screw things up or provide energy or something. The guys who can come in and do something very specific. And I think Castleton actually fits that mold. And to have a player who has played professionally, as Traore is only 21 years old, but he's played professionally. He is going to understand this, what it is to do this for a job. Castleton was a 4-year player. He's going to be a little more polished, lower ceiling, but a little more polished, more predictability. It's going to come in and he's going to understand the assignment. And so I think that's the value of those guys. Anthony Davis is playing like an MVP. I realize it's preseason, but I think he's got enough of a track record to know that this is the type of play that he can carry into the season. Holy hell, Andy, he has had a phenomenal preseason.
Yeah, this game was no exception. 35 points. You mentioned 14 of 28 from the field, 4 of 9 from behind the arc, and we'll get to that in a second. 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. 2 rebounds on the offensive glass. Only 3 of 8 at the line, and that, I know it's preseason, but AD getting to the line, you want to see him make those free throws, A, because he's typically good at it, and B, because he's somebody that has the ability to draw those fouls. The 9 threes, JJ Redick after the game mentioned that the first play that he actually drew up was AD for 3, which he made. And he was asked about like the balance between what's the right amount for AD, because every year it's AD is going to take more threes season in October, and then we eventually start seeing it go down and down. And he said, like, I'm not looking for him to take 9 threes a game. Like, this is not the norm he's looking to establish. But he did say he didn't feel like tonight, for example, where both his three-pointer and his jumper was working, and he had a great jumper going in the last game as well. He said, like, this isn't a matter, in his opinion, of confidence with AD. It's a matter of asserting himself with this particular thing. He's like, it's a matter of him just doing it. And, you know, I have been openly skeptical at the idea of AD from behind the arc becoming a thing, just because it never really has. And I also just at times question the necessity of it when you are elite around the rim and hopefully there's enough other 3-point shooting. I wonder if the juice is worth the squeeze. But if he can become a proficient 3-point shooter, there's no downside to having that weapon. And if the confidence behind the arc leads to more confidence at like 16 feet, because like when that shot's going,
I think that's really what this is. I think this is like, go be confident with your jumper, be confident from everywhere. We're not going to restrict anything about you and your offensive game, you know. And because I will say, certain guys, when they shoot the ball, like Hood Schifino had a 3-pointer in this game. It looked like he shot it out of a cannon. You know, they went in, but it was like, it was going at speeds toward the rim from the 3-point land that I just, it's like, and it went in. I mean, good for him. But like AD's jumper from 3, generally speaking, the ball looks good leaving his hand. It looks comfortable and all. It doesn't go in enough. But like, my point with that is more like, you have the freedom to do everything, and we trust you to understand good shot from bad shot, and like wide open 3 in the flow of the offense, good shot. You know,
Anthony Davis takes, over the course of an 82 game season, takes like maybe 7 bad shots the entire year. Like the concern about AD starting to get reckless on the court, if anything, I'd like to see him more reckless. I'm not worried at all about that.
Yeah, it's just, if he can, you know, if he can carry this level of play into the regular season, because this is even something a little elevated from last year, where he was, you know, not quite MVP caliber, I think, in the grand sum total of things, but was kind of fringy first team All NBA caliber. Like Anthony Davis was excellent last year. And something about this start, kind of in the preseason at least, feels a little bit different. It's a question of carrying this assertiveness and momentum, and I think the attention that the Lakers are paying to him offensively is conscious. Like, I don't think we're going to run into these stretches of 4 or 5 or 6 possessions where he's out on the floor and doesn't get the ball. I don't think Redick is going to tolerate that. I think he'll stop and call plays to get the ball into AD's hands. And it is excellent to see.
One final wrinkle I'll bring up before we go, and it's something we'll be talking about over the course of the season that I think just makes it interesting. And we saw it in this game. Nobody on this team sets up AD better than D'Lo.
Yep.
D'Lo and AD play really well off each other.
D'Lo didn't shoot well on Thursday. He was only 2 of 9, missed all 5 of his threes. I got a text from a friend. He's like, I'm a little worried. I'm like, don't, he'll be fine. But he had 10 assists, and like 8 of them were to AD.
I mean, he really he's always conscious of setting up AD as well. So that in and of itself, with some of the, you know, ball in his hands versus ball in Reeves's hands.
Good bounce back game from Reeves as well. In terms of the
Austin had a nice game.
Nice floaters, stuff happening in the lane. He had 18 and 8 rebounds, including 2 offensive rebounds for his own putbacks.
It's interesting. Like I've said before, I and you have as well. Like Austin is much better creating out of chaos and when things break down, especially towards the end of a possession, as opposed to starting things out, and especially looking to run an offense, setting up other guys. But he and Jackson Hayes kept running pick and roll over and over that led to Reeves getting to the same spot in the lane every single time to put up a floater. It looked really good. Simple stuff looked really good.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the program. We may or may not record a show after Friday's preseason finale. It depends a little bit on who plays, to be perfectly honest. It may be our last Friday off for a little while. So we'll see how that goes. But at worst, we'll be back Monday getting you ready for Tuesday's opener. Everybody have a great weekend.